Good day to everyone joining us, and welcome to this session titled Powering a Resilient Africa, Lessons from the Evaluation of AfDB's Renewable Energy Support. This event is part of the Evidence for Climate Action Pavilion at COP30, organized by Independent Development Evaluation at the African Development Bank. So before we begin, I'd just like to let you know that English and French interpretation is available. You can click on the globe icon on your Zoom toolbar to access interpretation. And then you can also use the chat function to share comments and questions to our speakers. And after they've made their presentations, they'll be able to get to those questions and respond to as many of them as they can. Let me introduce the speakers for today. First, we have Mr. Joseph Mwanda, who is the Chief Evaluation Officer at IDEV, and he'll make a presentation on the key findings and lessons from IDEV's evaluation of the AfDB's support for renewable energy 2012 to 2021. And after he makes his presentation, he'll be followed by Mr. Anthony Karembu. Anthony is a Principal Energy Specialist at the African Development Bank, and he is going to reflect on the findings and how they inform operational practice and the bank's efforts to scale up renewable energy. I'm going to post the full speaker bios and the resources, the evaluation resources on the chat. So Joseph, over to you.
Thank you, Christine. I will be speaking in French, so people be ready for the translation. Bonjour, bon après-midi à toutes et à tous. Je suis vraiment heureux d'être avec vous aujourd'hui dans le cadre de cette session de la COP30 pour discuter d'un sujet essentiel. Comment l'Afrique peut accélérer une transition énergétique à la fois juste, ambitieuse et résiliente. Je vais de ce fait vous présenter les principaux résultats de l'évaluation menée par l'évaluation indépendante de développement du groupe de la Banque africaine de développement sous le soutien de la Banque africaine de développement aux énergies renouvelables. Cette évaluation couvre les interventions de la Banque africaine de développement dans les énergies renouvelables entre 2012 et 2021. Elle porte sur 156 opérations dans 43 pays, incluant des grands projets solaires, hydroélectriques, éoliens et géothermiques connectés au réseau, des soutiens d'accès à l'énergie décentralisée et hors réseau, ainsi que du soutien institutionnel et de la préparation des projets. Nous avons utilisé des méthodes mixtes, revues documentaires, analyse détaillée du portefeuille, 35 évaluations de projets et 10 études de cas. Et il faut noter que cette évaluation a directement alimenté la mise en œuvre du nouveau pacte pour l'énergie en Afrique. Les 10 pays sélectionnés pour les études de cas sont Burkina Faso, Cameroun, Côte d'Ivoire, République démocratique du Congo, Maroc, Kenya, Madagascar, Afrique du Sud, Ouganda et Zambie. De point de vue contextuel, l'Afrique fait face à un immense défi. En effet, plus de 60 millions de personnes n'ont toujours pas accès à l'électricité. En même temps, quand l'électricité est disponible, la consommation reste très faible. Cette consommation est bien en deçà des besoins nécessaires pour soutenir l'industrialisation et améliorer les conditions de vie de la population. Le paradoxe, c'est que le continent dépend encore largement des énergies fossiles, malgré son potentiel énorme en ressources renouvelables. De ce fait, les énergies renouvelables ne sont donc pas seulement un choix environnemental, c'est la base d'un développement inclusif, durable et résilient au climat. En termes de constatation, qu'est-ce que l'évaluation a révélé? Premièrement, la banque a une forte ambition stratégique pour les énergies renouvelables. Cependant, cette ambition ne s'est pas toujours traduite par une cohérence opérationnelle appropriée. En effet, la Banque africaine de développement a clairement affiché une forte ambition en matière d'énergie renouvelable, notamment en termes de politique et de stratégie. Mais cette ambition n'a pas toujours été accompagnée des plans d'action concrets ou de feuilles de route opérationnelles. Cela a limité la capacité à accélérer le déploiement des énergies renouvelables. Il faut aussi noter que les investisseurs privés, eux, ont besoin de règles claires et de la prévisibilité, notamment dans les processus de passation de marché. L'exemple du programme sud-africain de passation de marché pour les producteurs indépendants d'énergie renouvelable montre qu'un système de passation transparent peut réellement attirer les investissements privés. En résumé, une vision stratégique, oui, mais elle doit être accompagnée de mécanismes opérationnels solides. La deuxième constatation est que les infrastructures de soutien comme les réseaux de transport et de distribution, ainsi que des systèmes de stockage de l'énergie, restent le maillon faible ou le maillon manquant sans lequel la transition énergétique ne peut pleinement s'accomplir. En effet, construire une centrale électronique, c'est une chose. Avoir des lignes de transport, de distribution et des capacités de stockage, c'en est une autre. Sans ces infrastructures, même les meilleurs projets ne produisent pas leur plein impact. Le parc éolien du lac Turkana au Kenya en est l'exemple parfait. Une centrale de classe mondiale, mais paralysée pendant des années faute de lignes de transmission opérationnelles. Troisième constatation, la finance mixte est indispensable pour mobiliser les capitaux privés à grande échelle, mais elle exige une gestion rigoureuse des risques. En effet, comme on le sait, le financement public ne pourra jamais répondre à lui seul aux besoins du continent. La banque a démontré une capacité significative à mobiliser des partenaires et des ressources concessionnelles. Par exemple, la réhabilitation d'Inga a permis de transformer 33 millions d'unités de compte en 666 millions de financement. Le Fonds pour l'énergie durable en Afrique, CFA, est aussi un exemple notable de mobilisation réussie. Les garanties se sont imposées comme un instrument clé au niveau de la Banque africaine de développement pour attirer les capitaux privés. Elles représentaient au moment de l'évaluation près de 20% du portefeuille contre seulement 2% auparavant. Toutefois, sans mécanisme adéquat de partage des risques, elles peuvent générer de futures obligations souveraines, d'où la nécessité d'une structuration prudente et rigoureuse. Quatrième constatation, il n'existe pas de solution unique pour les énergies renouvelables. Chaque pays trace sa propre trajectoire selon ses ressources, ses priorités et ses capacités. En effet, certains pays sont prêts pour des projets de grande échelle portés par des producteurs indépendants, pendant que d'autres ont plutôt besoin de mini-réseaux, des solutions hors réseau ou de réformes sectorielles. La Banque africaine de développement a par ailleurs fourni avec succès un soutien plus important à la préparation des projets dans les États en transition. Une transition juste ne se décrète pas. Elle se construit avec réalisme et on a noté que dans plusieurs pays, le gaz continue de jouer un rôle transitoire pour garantir la sécurité énergétique tout en avançant vers davantage de renouvelables. Il est donc important d'accompagner des trajectoires qui concilient ambition climatique, sécurité énergétique et priorité de développement. Constatation numéro 5. Remédier aux faiblesses financières et institutionnelles du secteur de l'énergie constitue un préalable essentiel à un déploiement durable et à grande échelle des énergies renouvelables. L'évaluation a mis en exergue une bonne solidité technique, mais une durabilité financière fragile, car beaucoup de compagnies d'électricité sont en difficulté. Des tarifs qui ne reflètent pas les coûts réels de l'électricité, dont 36 parmi les 54 pays africains. Et enfin, des institutions souvent faibles dans les pays membres régionaux. Sans un secteur solide, financièrement et institutionnellement, il est impossible de développer les énergies renouvelables à grande échelle sur le long terme. Enfin, pour conclure, voici les messages clés. Une ambition stratégique forte ne suffit pas. Il faut des plans d'action opérationnels et suivis. Deuxièmement, sans infrastructure de transport, de distribution et de stockage, les projets d'énergie renouvelable restent limités dans leur impact. Troisièmement, la finance mixte est indispensable pour attirer les investissements privés, mais elle doit être soigneusement structurée et accompagnée de mécanismes de gestion des risques. Quatrièmement, il n'y a pas de solution unique. Chaque pays avance selon ses ressources, ses capacités et ses priorités. Cinquièmement, le secteur énergétique doit être financièrement et institutionnellement solide pour soutenir un déploiement durable et massif des énergies renouvelables. Et enfin, il est essentiel que les nouveaux investissements dans les énergies renouvelables soient pensés dès le départ pour s'intégrer correctement aux réseaux nationaux. Cela veut dire gérer l'intermittence et s'assurer que chaque nouvelle capacité ajoutée contribue réellement à un réseau stable, fiable et sécurisé. Merci pour votre attention.
Thank you very much, Joseph, for that concise but very informative presentation. And I will now hand over to Anthony to make his remarks. Over to you, Anthony.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you, Joseph, for that. I think first of all, good afternoon to all of you. I know when you look at the lessons, I guess it is up to 2023, but also I will be able to present what have we done and what have we incorporated as part of our operational aspect to ensure that, these lessons learned are incorporated in current operations. So as we look at the lessons, the bank's renewable energy support, one clear thing is it's very clear. Africa clean energy ambition is very strong. However, challenges remain, but the bank has made significant progress in terms of turning this ambition into action. When you look at the momentum as reinforced by the bank's new 10-year strategy, which is from 2025 to 2033, it places climate change adaptation and resilience as a center of Africa's development, also recognizing the continent's vulnerability, but also just to mention that the bank is also very committed to low carbon development pathways aligned to the Paris alignment. Now, looking at also this direction is now strongly reflected, again, what has happened in the current National Energy Compacts, which is within the Mission 300, and also where we talk about renewable energy plays, which also, plays a major role within the 5 pillars. I'll come back to that later. Now, looking at the first strategy, the first finding, strategy to action, it's evident that strong high-level strategy does not automatically translate into action. However, the evaluation shows that as much as you don't deliver the results, we have seen recent progress, and this is through the Mission 300 and also the country energy compacts, and helping also bridge the gap between ambition and implementation. Looking at the second one, we're talking about mobilizing private sector. The second key insight concerns the private sector. Predictability remains critical for investors, as you can see. in the South African IPP program, which demonstrates transparency and building confidence. The bank is also applying this kind of lessons in like the special fund that we have. This is the SEFA, Sustainable Energy Fund for Africa. Also the Desert to Power, which looks at electrifying the 11 countries within the Sahel to reduce also the desertification, and also the compacts that expand bankable projects and crowding long-term private capital. Now, when you look at the third one, smart financing, risk sharing, yes, public financing alone cannot close the energy gap. But the bank's blended finance track record, such as he has rightfully mentioned, where you have the Inga rehabilitation with a ratio of 1 to 20, shows what is possible. But I think one key lesson to learn from there is that scale de-risking tools, but to ensure that the design is responsible to avoid future fiscal pressures on the respective countries. Now, he also mentioned about the tailored and just energy transition. Africa energy transition will not be uniform. We know countries are different based on readiness and based on the policies they have. So the bank's tailored support, a good example like for the Cameroon's first solar IPP to innovative securitization of solar potentials, solar portfolios in Cote d'Ivoire, reflects an approach that is both country-specific and people-centered. The national energy compacts, as I've just mentioned, now formalize this kind of just transition framework. Looking also at the systemic investment for resilience, a resilient energy future requires more than generation. So we're not just sticking to the upfront value chain, which is the generation, but we're looking across transmission, storage, regional interconnections. All these are very central also within the Mission 300 and are essential to ensure renewable energy can reach people and markets. So in closing, so that I can give more room for questions, in closing, we know Africa renewable energy journey is advancing. But faster progress will require bridging ambition and action, public and private financing, global goals with national realities. In some, evaluation shows that we have improvement is needed, but also highlights how much the bank has already achieved this. And of course, with the AfDB 10-year strategy, prioritizing climate resilience and Mission 300, we are better positioned than ever to turn ambition to real impact. So I guess together we can ensure that we can power a more resilient Africa. So thank you. Now, I think just to go back to the next, just to open the dialogue, I'd like to just pose a few questions, right? Because this is now the question part. And I will pose them based on the findings that we have seen. And I think the first question to pose, how can we, that is development institutions, ensure strong strategies translate into practical action at the country level, right? The second one I'll try to pose here is what policy mechanisms can strengthen alignment between national priorities and, of course, what we're talking about, the renewable energy transition. Of course, we know private sector is very key, but however, what are the key enablers of predictability and investor confidence? Right, that's one of, I think, on one of the findings. And how can we design de-risk instruments that attract private sector without creating fiscal vulnerabilities to the respective countries? And then finally, of course, on the transition aspect, how can we make the transition truly just, context responsive, and ensure no country is left behind? So I'll leave it to that, and back to you, Joseph and Christine, if there are any questions on the chat that we can actually respond to.
Thank you very much, Anthony. And I like that you also conclude with a few questions for reflection. So there are a few questions that have come from the chat. Maybe we can talk about those and then come back to these ones that you've raised to reflect on. Louise May from Cameroon is asking, what are the mechanisms put in place by Africa organizations and the World Bank to ensure the effective implementation to enhance climate change, environmental and maritime sustainability to the most remote areas in Africa? And he also follows to ask, yes, what are we doing for effective implementation of COP30 objectives? So I think basically maybe he just wants to know, what are we doing really overall with regard to climate action? I know you touched upon this a little bit, and maybe you can just expand, really focusing on renewable energy.
So I'll speak to this, and I think it comes back to the first question that I mentioned. How can we ensure strong strategies translate to practical action at country level? Now, while the evaluation points to gaps in strategy and implementation, it's important to recognize that the AfDB has made significant strides in advancing renewable energy. So one aspect under the New Deal on Energy for Africa, the bank has built one of the continent's largest renewable energy portfolios and has helped mobilize billions of co-financing. The challenge now is not the absence of strategy, but in ensuring systematic translation of ambition to implementation. And this is where now, when you talk about going to the remote areas of Africa, this is now what we talk about the Mission 300 initiative, where we now have up to the third cohort, and the first cohort have already come up with their respective national energy compacts, and they are changing that trajectory where renewable energy is embedded within the core of country delivery plans and operationalizing the five pillars. And the 5 pillars, at least for the Mission 301, power and generation. The second part is the transmission and distribution. The third part, of course, which is off-grid, which was not really looked at as a main aspect of electrifying, where, we always concentrated on grid access. But now we're diverting and looking at off-grid access on its own. So that's off-grid access, but also not forgetting policy and regulation, because different countries have different policies and are ready in different ways. And of course, let's not kid ourselves. Energy efficiency. This is very important, because if you have rehabilitation of certain power plants which could produce at least efficiently, then that is where we come in. So together, these frameworks are helping bridge the gap and providing clear delivery pathways and accountability structures at the national level. I hope I've answered you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Just a follow-up from Samuel Obeng. I think he's seeking to find out what the role of the African Renewable Energy Initiative in the renewable energy discourse is. I don't know if this is within the Africa Renewable Energy Initiative. I don't know if this is maybe an initiative that we have been engaged with or not. So it's coming from Samuel Obeng, this question.
Okay, I think the way to answer that is, if you talk about Africa Renewable Initiative, maybe I could speak to the Desert to Power Initiative, all right, which currently looks at providing 10 gigawatts across 11 countries in the Sahel. And these countries start from Mauritania all the way to Ethiopia. So you have Djibouti, Eritrea, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal as well. Now, looking at this, we look at also respectively the 5 pillars: generation, right? Transmission. So currently what the bank has done is that we're now doing a pre-feasibility for an eastern backbone. So this will be a transmission line all the way from Mauritania to Ethiopia. And it will be able to tap into the vast solar initiatives or solar potential within the Sahel, right? And while this is done, hopefully it will be also able to interconnect the power pools, because it will be cutting across actually 3 power pools. This is the East African power pool, West African power pool, and potentially, I think, the Central Africa power pool, which of course sits within the West African power pool. So I hope I've answered you on that one. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Anthony. I'll let you take a sip of water as I turn to Joseph and pose a question that has come from Arunjana Dash. And the question is, can you elaborate on the evaluation findings, on the reasons behind the mixed views or inadequacy of AfDB's role as a knowledge broker? Joseph, did you get the question? Yes. So the reasons behind the mixed views, inadequacy of AfDB's role as a knowledge broker. You're muted, Joseph. Please unmute yourself. Thank you.
Okay. I think one of the reason is we can say the link within the knowledge product and the real need on the ground. Yes, we may have a lot of knowledge project, the generic knowledge product, but the one people is looking on the ground is the one is needed. If they can transform the way they are working, they don't need sometimes generic knowledge we used to publish, but they need some, based on a country context, they have more specific need in terms of knowledge that will help them to improve the way they are doing their business. So what people want, not a generic knowledge, but something linked to the operational need. This is, I think, the main obstacle.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll let Anthony also weigh in on that. And then Anthony, as a follow-up to that, I would request you to elaborate on collaboration across IFIs and MDBs, and especially with regard to Mission 300, and how else multiple organizations are aligning around these ambitious targets that we have. This question comes from Victor Beltran. Over to you, Anthony.
Yeah, so, and I know we have only 4 minutes because I love to also provide closing remarks. I think, let's be clear, the Mission 300 not only just looks at electrifying, 300 million people by 2030, but also we need to move away from just electrification, just having a bulb, but also moving to industrialization, right? And the power has to bring something to the fold. So the way we've done it is that we've secured a lot of also strong partnerships. So we have a strong partner momentum, and we have, of course, pledges from the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, Agence Française Développement, the Islamic Development Bank, OPEC Fund, and also additional engagements with the European Investment Bank. So you can see that it's not just, we're not just doing it alone. We are partnering, of course, with the World Bank and also all these interested partners who want to also be part of this journey of electrifying up to 300 people in Africa. So I'll say it's an ongoing process, and we've seen a lot of uptick of countries because currently, as we speak, we have the first cohort and the second cohort of countries, which now was, of course, targeting up to even just more than that, not just 300, 460 million new connections, right, within the continent. And of course, looking at the total investments, we're talking about 236 billion between the two cohorts of countries. So there's a lot of uptake now coming through for the countries. Now, I think because we only have 2 minutes, maybe just a quick closing on this, just to mention that if time allows, that at the end of the day, Africa comes first. It is one of the most, I'll say, the most exciting continents where we can drive innovation, we can try new financing mechanisms, and we are finding it's not just one country is moving maybe faster than the other country. So country readiness in terms of all this is it's one or the other. But then again, we have the Mission 300 coming in, because the Mission 300 is able to ensure that there's peer-to-peer discussions. Everybody is actually looking at the national compacts. So national compacts are not all the same, but we can learn from each and everybody. So for the first time, we have countries that have come together, right? Again, through this Mission 300. And most of these national energy compacts, you'll see that it's not just electrification, but it goes all the way to industrialization. So I think just as a closing remark is just to say that actionable takeaways going forward is, one, let's plan systematically. With the National Energy Compacts coming in, we're planning. We're seeing what the other compacts have, and countries can learn from that. Let's execute decisively, right? Let's not just put plans there and then they just gather dust. Let's mobilize private sector wisely. Let's support each country unique pathway, because countries are different, and anchor everything on climate resilience and low carbon growth, as guided, of course, with the African Development Bank's 10-year strategy. So for this, let me close here, and thank you, and over to you, Christine. I think we've run out of time.
Yes, we have. We've run out of time. It was a very exciting 30 minutes, and I hope that our participants have been able to gain something and their questions have been responded to. I would like to take this moment to thank Joseph and Anthony very much for those insightful discussions and inputs. And I would like to also take this opportunity to thank the organizers of the E4CA Pavilion, the technical team behind all this, the IDEV colleagues, the interpreters who made this session run smoothly. I thank you very much, and please join us in another 1 hour. We are going to have another session on transport with Joseph making a presentation and another colleague weighing in from the operational perspective. Thank you very much and have a good day. Bye.
Thank you very much.